Hello and welcome. I'm Suzy and you're listening to F Word, the agency experience. Thanks for tuning in to Fresh's very own podcast, where we'll be taking an insider's view on agency life in our incredible industry. We'll be sharing insights, innovations, and knowledge on all areas of the agency experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Stay tuned as we delve into what it takes to stay ahead of the game in 2025 and beyond. Hello and welcome to episode 3 in our So What series. Today we're going to be talking all things women's health. So joining me today we have Amelia Barratt-Moores, one of our lovely account directors.
Hi, thank you.
And then we have Laura Lee, our director of client delivery. Thank you very much for joining. Today's podcast is a little bit different from the past ones we've done in our So What series. So we're going to get a little bit more personal. We're talking about women's health. So we'll be talking about our own personal journeys, our own personal stories, as well as the kind of relevancy to the industry. So Amelia, let's start with you. Talk to me about your route into motherhood and challenges and struggles that you've had returning to work after.
So I had 2 boys, fairly young nowadays. I was in my 20s when I had them. To kind of come back after having my second child and being like, okay, I'm 30 now. That's still fairly young to have 2 small children, and then to come back into the industry and be like, okay, I feel like I'm starting from scratch because this is a completely new way of working, to be able to juggle 2 children at home who are quite small and then be like, now it's time for my career again.
Whereabouts were you in your career at that point?
So I actually came and started at Fresh when my youngest was about 7 months old. It was a decision that I made because I didn't really want to be at home with 2 children anymore. I found like it was going to be easier to go to work, and I kind of came in freelancing and then came in as a senior account manager. So I was very much kind of finding my fate in an agency, in a new job, and kind of trying to learn the transition of juggling children and work all at the same time in a very new environment.
And at that level, having to kind of hit the ground running straight away.
Really, yeah, absolutely. And kind of at the same time, you're kind of just thinking, can I do this? Like, can I actually do this? Is this, you know, am I giving enough to work and giving enough at home? Constant the self-doubt and imposter syndrome that like you're failing in some area. And it's really hard to kind of get out of that and kind of really get into the swing of it. And
that shift as well from being with them 24/7.
Yeah, absolutely that. And it was kind of like you'd sit and cuddle them overnight and go, I've actually been fine today, but now that I'm holding you, I've missed you. And then that guilt of, am I doing the right thing? Am I scarring them for life by putting them in nursery full time? And am I getting the right experience that I want from motherhood?
I often, I think about your mothers a lot because sometimes it's hard enough just getting myself out the door in the morning.
Getting kids out the door, like I had a toddler and a baby.
People do this with other humans.
Yeah, trying to get them, literally you have to manhandle them to get them ready and get out the door. As soon as one person in the morning at their desk says, oh, this was my morning, another mum will turn around and go, oh my God, tell me about it, right? Really? I was up 3 times in the night because someone wet the bed and someone was sick and someone needed a bottle, and I've just had a complete 2 hours of chaos trying to get everyone out the door to even get here. And you can feel really selfish for doing it as well, because you've kind of like, it's sort of my choice to do this. And all of a sudden you can kind of go, okay, this is okay. Like, I'm not in this alone. Everyone else is doing this too.
That's really important, isn't it? Like being
that united front of, I'm not the only one who's struggling here. Like, this is just kind of the way it goes and we're all in it together.
So Laura, let's hear about your journey.
So my journey was completely different. I had my oldest, my 2 are 9 and 6 years old. I had my oldest when I was 38. I was very much classed as a geriatric mum, which was a lovely term. Up until that age, I had spent my entire life completely focused on my career and my social life, I'm not going to lie. So then having children at a much later age absolutely flips that at a point where you're almost like institutionalised to that kind of life. So at that point, I was already a board director, I was already a leader, and so I almost had to find my feet again as to who I am. You know, what am I meant to be in life? How do I juggle being a mum and also being a leader? I absolutely recognise every single challenge that you mentioned then. In hindsight, I asked myself this question a lot. Would I have had more energy and been less tired if I was younger? So I guess the question is to you. Do you think I'd have been less tired if I was younger?
I think like you definitely have that energy, and I can see it even as I get older with how much energy the kids have. But I don't know. I think the sleep, right? The sleep
Sleep
gets you. No
deprivation,
matter what age you
yeah.
are, that sleep gets you. So that depends on if your child is sleeping through or
Yeah.
not, to how that goes.
And mine still aren't. Every single night this week, I've had either the 9-year-old or the 6-year-old in my bed, which is lovely for cuddles, but not so great in terms of sleep quality. But in terms of kind of like my path into parenthood, that was also a little bit unique as well. My oldest, who is 9, he's my biological son, whereas we adopted my daughter, who's 6. So we've had a very different path into parenthood. When we chose to adopt, we ended up adopting during lockdown, which was pretty tough actually. It was quite isolating, and I wanted to try and break down some of those taboos within the agency. So I did send a message to the entire business and said, you know, unfortunately we'd had several miscarriages and it hadn't been a successful route for us to have another biological child, and so this was the route that we were going to take. And you know, I openly said I wanted to share that with you. So it's the norm to share that if people want to. And the response I had was just incredible. And I can't tell you how many messages I had saying, yeah, me too. I've had the same challenge, I've had the same path. And actually, surprisingly, several people saying, actually, I'm adopted, or I'm considering adopting, or my sister, or my brother, or my mum. And just hearing everybody's journey was just incredible and really powerful for me to then be on that route myself, and to hear the success stories that people have had in their own lives and in their wider families. So it certainly was a reality check to me at the time on the different paths that, you know, everybody takes into parenthood, whether they're having them young, old, IVF, adopting. You know, there's so many different ways that people create a family. And with that, we have to, as business owners, understand that and support our team members with that, and recognise that there isn't one path into this, and we have to create an environment and a way of working that allows them to take those different routes in the way that the business allowed me.
Obviously not a mother myself, but I've got a lot of experience of managing mothers.
As a leader, how have you found that?
The most important thing for me is to make that person that's coming back to work feel valued and wanted, because I think there is an element of, I've been away for so long, am I actually going to, you know, be able to show my worth again, and am I going to have to prove that worth, you know, come back? There's been a big gap and new people might be around. How's that going to look for me? Really reassuring that person that we're not going to expect them to come in and be firing on all cylinders and remember everything. Cannot imagine how it must feel like, so daunting to walk back in on that first day. So everything that we can do to help them feel better about that process, whether that's, of course, flexible working, that's one of the great things that we can offer. Always going to be people there to help navigate that journey of coming back.
Yeah, I think that transition back to work is really important, because I like to that flexibility. When you're dropping that baby off at nursery and they start crying, the last thing you want to do is be like, gotta go, like I need to be at my desk for 9 o'clock. So to be able to kind of go, no, actually I can just take a second here, make sure they're okay. Now I can make sure I'm okay, and now I can get to work, rather than it being like 9 o'clock on the dot, I need to be sat at that desk. I've definitely felt that the fact that the senior leadership are so open and approachable about any kind of family dynamics has made it really easy to have those open conversations, to really turn around to your manager and go, oh, I'm not okay. And to feel like they're going to go, okay, we'll come up with a plan together. Like, you don't feel on your own.
That is, it actually makes me a little bit emotional to hear that, to be honest, because that was always what we wanted to create within Fresh. I have I've been very fortunate to work for some amazing agencies throughout my career, but actually in the early days, I'd look around and think, how am I going to have a family and kids one day? Because I worked in agencies where once you'd had a family or kids, you tended to move into more of a support team role, a back of house role, where you were travelling less, you weren't going on site as much. And of course, I had this whole kind of like conflict where I was really career driven, and I didn't want to give up my career. I wanted to be able to have that career, but at a later point also have a family. You know, I wonder, did I have a family later in life partly because of that, because I didn't know how I was going to juggle it both, and I didn't have all the answers to that. I hope we have created that environment now where you can have both, because you should be able to have both. You shouldn't have to give up your career just because you want to have a family.
There's definitely that question after having a baby going, can I make this work? And I think if you don't have that support internally, and a manager who kind of asks that question of, oh, this event is on site. Like, just give them a second to work out the dynamics of how to make it possible. Make it feel like it's your choice. To be able to figure it out actually really helps, like having that open question rather than it being like, oh, well, of course you're going to go there for a week, because it is all possible. Like you said, it's absolutely possible to have a career and to be a mum. Of course, there's offsets to both. Some weeks you feel like you do better at one than the other, but you can do it.
Obviously, we're all fully aware that being in the events industry is the third most stressful career you can choose. Well done us for choosing that. How do you think motherhood plays into that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's definitely a stressful industry that we work in. Being a parent then obviously tips the scales on that balance once again. And from a juggling perspective, from a lack of sleep, imposter syndrome, all of these things that you face or can face as a new parent, that certainly adds to the stress within our industry. But actually, a lot of the stress within our industry is relative to absolutely everybody. So then that opens up a bigger discussion around how we manage that, and as a business leader, how I support the team members navigating that stressful industry.
What do you think about the support that Fresh offers and the things that we can do to help?
I think getting some mental health first aiders within the business has been really helpful to kind of start to educate not only ourselves but the leadership team on kind of what to do and how to support the team with that. I think a massive thing with mental health is that it is not one straight continuous line. It is very much like up and down, and every day can be different, and it's making people aware of that. For me personally, I definitely kind of struggled, probably because I had the boys so young, that when you're in your 20s you're still learning a lot about yourself, so kind of coming out of the parenthood bubble and having to really kind of question my own mental health in terms of anxiety and general day-to-day struggles, and really kind of put a passion for me into that. So going back into work, and then from that going on the mental health first aid course and being able to kind of really put that into my team and making sure it's really forefront of my team. Like you said, it's a really stressful industry. We can spend a lot of time on site, long hours, all of that sort of thing. So to have someone who's aware from a leadership point of view, to be able to make sure that their team are looking after themselves even in busy periods. And sometimes that is literally saying, no, turn off your laptop, you're going out for a walk. Like, it's just those simple things, because people get so caught up in the deadline and I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and the importance of it, that they sometimes need that reminder that they are important too.
There's things like access to therapy, like in various different ways that are accessible to people, and I think that's something that's really valued.
Yeah, a lot of companies as well, they have it as part of their package, but it's not necessarily like so vocal, whereas we do have a big package of things that can support you in your mental health journey that is free, so it takes that financial pressure off. But I think also kind of having that open communication around it also makes people feel like it's not a taboo subject within the office if someone is struggling.
So 70% of Fresh are female. How representative is that of the industry, Laura?
I think that is pretty reflective. For me, I am more interested in the leadership within the industry, because I'm pretty certain that 70% of leadership in our sector is not female. And I think I was always ambitious to become a member of the leadership team to pave the way with that. In Fresh, 2 out of 5 of the board directors and senior leadership team are female. That's myself and Katie. 7 out of 9 of our senior management team are female, which I think is fantastic. But I know that wouldn't be reflective across the industry. And I think that's something that we absolutely need to improve across the board. Amongst many other things, I'd have a list that I could share with you, which would include gender pay gap, certainly supporting returning mums, which we've talked about today. Women's health, there's a lot more that we need to be doing within our industry to support that. I think I'm one of the oldest females in the agency, I think, which now makes me feel really old. I have been really conscious to talk openly to male and female audiences about the hormonal changes that we're going through. I feel like I went straight from pregnancy into perimenopause, if I'm honest. I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I think I'm on the cusp of menopausal now, actually. It's been a journey. It's been a journey personally, but it's been a journey work-wise as well. I have recognised changes in myself the 28-day cycle, wow, it's never impacted me as much as it does at the moment. It impacts my work, it impacts me going to the gym, it impacts everything. And I think we should be openly talking about that in front of our male and female colleagues. We would want to encourage our male colleagues to talk about anything that was impacting them personally as well. But you said something really interesting to me the other week, and you were saying to me that actually with a pregnancy, a lot of people prepare you for that. You have, you know, the support from the NHS and guidance, you have support from family, from friends, people who've been through that before, and you're being primed almost to get to that due date. But when you go through perimenopause, menopause, nobody's telling you what to expect or how to handle it. That is an issue, I feel, in Western society. Myself and Rachel, Suzy's fellow group account director, went to an industry event last year, and there was a really interesting talk about menopause in the workplace. Of course, the audience was from all around the world, and they were sharing their menopausal journey, and they were talking about this amazing paths that they'd had and all these studies and tests that they'd had and the monthly hormonal checks that they'd had. And when I say monthly, every day for a month, that led them to realise what they needed from a medication perspective, etc. And then me and Rachel sat there thinking, oh, UK attendees here. No, we just have to figure it out by Googling it, and we're not quite sure what it is and whether we have it and even what to do about it. I actually can't take any treatment for my menopause when it actually does fully arrive, because we have the breast cancer gene in my family, so I won't be able to take HRT, which I think scares the rest of the board more than it does me, if I'm honest with you. So that's a journey that I'm going to have to go on, and I'm going to be looking at alternative medicines and what I can do. But that's something that I'd want to be able to pass on, that knowledge as well of anything that I've discovered along the way. Myself and Rachel found ourselves in the room volunteering to be the menopause ambassadors of Fresh, and felt very passionately about that as well. So we kind of didn't know how to put it in practice until I went for dinner with one of our amazing clients, Jessica Penny, who works for BSI. We've worked with them now for since about 2019. I found myself talking about my menopausal journey, and she steered me towards the BS 3416, which is their own guide that they have, which is essentially supporting employers like myself to look at the policies, the practices, the adjustments that you can put in place to help employees who are going through kind of like menstruation, menstrual health or menopause in the workplace. And so actually we've now formed a working group which our male CEO is a part of. He has a wife and 2 daughters, and he's really passionate about this. He wants to be a part of this journey, not just for the female workforce within Fresh, but also to represent his family as well. And we're working our way through that now to go, okay, what do we need to put into place in Fresh to be able to support the 70% of our workforce? And I think that's fantastic. So watch this space with more exciting things to follow with that.
I think that's great. I think, like you said as well, it's that education piece. I know for me, kind of, I deal with 28-day cycle and all of that stuff, and you can tell that it's changing you when it's not very nice and you feel out of your comfort zone, and that fear of what is to come is there just because we don't know enough about it. And like you're saying, it's a bit trial and error. Kind of trying to figure out what's going to work for you is going to be so personal, and there just isn't enough support at the minute in the UK that's going to help you with that. And we spoke about mental health today as well. You know, the stats in a decline in mental health with people going through the perimenopausal is so high, because women just don't know actually how to look after themselves in that minute because they don't understand it.
And I think as someone who's hurtling towards perimenopause, the challenge, I think, is that everyone's experience is different. There's vastly different number of different symptoms that you know some of my friends and family have experienced. And that's the scary bit, because you don't know which bit you're going to get and what you have to prepare for and what to recognise as a sign sometimes. And that's it's that education piece, like you say, is what's so key. And you hear horror stories of, you know, being turned away by your doctor as kind of dismissed with certain symptoms, and it you know, they turn out to be perimenopause that you could have received that help for, and that's really hard that people have had to face that.
You're absolutely right. I have sought out additional support from GPs, etc., and I haven't been given it. And so we just wanted to make sure that as a business we were putting into place, you know, what we can. This affects people in the office, it affects people on site. It's affected me on site. I actually read through the BSI guidelines, and actually I learned something about myself in terms of my own menstrual health, something that I was struggling with, and actually the need for me to be taking medication to be able to support it. And I was able to take that and go to my GP and say, is this a thing that I can actually treat? And they were like, oh yeah. And I was like, why doesn't any women know about this? And so actually I've improved my own quality of life from that, just from doing the research for the policy that we're going to be implementing. So I'm really hopeful that within this there's going to be a lot of really good stuff for the wider team.
And that's why conversations like this are so important. Like, we need to keep being open and honest about it.
Couldn't agree more. It's up to us to be representatives of the business, to say to the wider team, this is normal that you're going to go through this. But you know, we'll support you where we can and give you that advice, and that goes on anything that we've talked about today. We want to be able to be approachable, talk about our experiences, and to be able to support and guide.
I think that's all I've got time for, I'm afraid. But I want to say thank you. Everyone's been really open and honest today, and I think it's been a really important conversation. And as we said at the beginning, quite different to our other podcasts so far. So thank you.
Thank you, really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Suzy. Thanks for hosting us.
We'll be back next time with episode 4 in our So What series. Until next time, bye for now.